Hello everyone, Mike the Warrior here. Today, as the title says, we're doing a top 10 video on the best characters in the first season of Bakugan Battle Brawlers. So for this video, I'm going to be counting 10 human characters, not the Bakugan. Those guys will be saved for their own video. And I'm only counting the first season. So if some characters like Dan, Shun, and Marucho showed up in multiple seasons, I'm only qualifying what they did in Battle Brawlers, not New Vestroya or Gundalian Invaders. The main reason for this is because I want to look at the characters and see how they're treated in each specific part of the story, so I'm not just repeating the same thing every time, and so some characters just won't be in the same spot each time I cover another show. So basically, Dan in New Vestroya and Dan in Mactanium Surge are going to be considered two different characters. I know this seems weird, but this is my list. And because this is my list, a lot of our opinions probably aren't going to match up, but feel free to let me know your top 10 characters in the comments down below. Without further ado, let's get started. This is a character I don't really see a lot of people talking about, but number 10 is Webmaster Joe. He was introduced as the one who created the Bakugan website. Because of that, the Brawlers had the suspicion that he was leaking the information to Masquerade, since he always knew where they were. But in reality, he was just a sick kid in the hospital who just really loves the game. They could have had Joe show up in just one episode, and I honestly would have been fine. But then they officially gave him his partner, Wyvern, and these two hit it off immediately. Honestly, don't really know what else to say, besides the fact that Joe is just a really good guy. This is going to be the oddest choice on the entire list, but number 8 is my boy Christopher. Don't worry, I promise it's going to all start making sense soon. And I know what some of you are thinking, who in the Doom Dimension is Christopher? My boy showed up in episode 24, and I'll be honest, it's probably my favorite episode of the entirety of the first season. Christopher was being bullied and started doubting his skills so much to the point where he was ready to throw his Bakugan in the river and quit altogether. Luckily, Alice stops him and offers to give him some pointers to get better at the game, and they form the most adorable master-student relationship in the entire show. After this, he stands up to his bully and then defeats him, and honestly, none of that really guarantees him a spot on the list, let alone being this high. But for me, the final thing that put him on the list was when he came back later around the end of the show in the final arc. Naga and his forces were terrorizing the city, and there he is, fighting alongside Alice and Klaus, two of the most powerful characters in the entire first season. And he's fighting alongside of them as equals. Watching Christopher grow into such a powerful battler was just something that I love to watch, and that puts him in the number 8 spot for me. This is definitely a weird spot for me to put the little guy, but hear me out. I like Marucho a lot. Originally, he was a lot higher on the list, but when I rewatched the season, I realized that I liked a lot of the other characters just a little bit more. In the beginning of the show, he's honestly just the stereotypical smart kid in the group, but during the episode when he gets his Bakugan Preyas, a lot more of his personality is finally starting to show off. For example, he has a really big interest in the ladies. Also, his fights were never boring because he had a unique fighting style. His Bakugan Preyas could change attributes, which led to some pretty unique fights from time to time. I definitely understand if you don't like where I place Marucho, but in my personal opinion, I think the later seasons show off his character a lot more than the original show did. Julie is honestly the only female character in the entire cast who has showed up in multiple seasons and was given the respect she deserves, even when she wasn't battling. Now granted, it wasn't like this during all of the seasons, and that didn't influence her spot on the list, but I just wanted to give her some extra points, just in case people think she should be higher, because I really do like Julie, and I think she was one of the best female characters we've gotten. She honestly has some of my favorite battles throughout the entire franchise, and she has the best written episode out of all of the Battle Brawlers when they were stuck in the Doom Dimension for that one arc. Her relationship with her sister Julie was really moving, and it also explains quite a bit about Julie's personality when you dive deep into her character. As bubbly as she is, she felt pretty insecure about her self-worth compared to her sister, and I honestly think anyone can get behind that. However, even though she does have some of my favorite episodes in the first season, she also has some of the worst. Her relationship with Billy was really interesting when it was originally brought up, but watching these two characters have the same fight over and over got very tiring at one point. And I'm normally not the type of person who would be so hung up about the idea that Julie's character kind of revolves around Billy for a decent portion of the show, but it's just a shame that Billy isn't really that interesting himself. Her final focus episode was, you guessed it, about her and Billy at one point. I just didn't really care, though I will admit, if I knew that little girl was going to show up in the halfway point, I would have kept my mouth shut and just took what I had. I just want to reiterate, I adore Julie's character, I just think Billy holds her back. Luckily we have that one episode with Daisy to make me forget about him. At number 6, we have a tie between Klaus and Chan Li because they're both here for the exact same reason. Let's go ahead and talk about Chan first. Growing up, I didn't really think much of Chan, but looking back, she was pretty great. She never won a single battle on screen, but that was because she was fighting the most powerful characters in the entire show every single time. She brought a certain level of intensity that set a standard for a lot of the female villains going forward, and even after she stopped working for Masquerade, she wasn't just taking up screen time, unlike certain other characters throughout the series. She's also the final person who 1v1 Naga right before Drago, so there's a little extra brownie points for that. Similar to Chan, Klaus brought a very serious vibe to every single battle he was a part of, which was a given since he was the second best in the entire world for half the show. But like his teammate, I didn't really think much of him growing up. The big thing that put him on this list was his battle against Alice. Not the battle itself, but because how hard he tried to help her through her guilt and how supportive he was. He was a good villain, but he was an even better friend. Number 5 is Miyoko Kuso. That's right, Dan's mom. Miyoko was on this list because of the second half of the show really showed how great of a mom she was. In the first couple of episodes, we see her either nagging Dan to do his chores, or she's doing yoga in the living room. Sometimes she's doing both. Everything for her really kicks off in episode 27. Miyoko is a bit flustered because she actually forgot it was her birthday. On top of that, her son actually bought her a gift this time. Dan then tells her that he'll call her later before leaving, but he never does. At first, she brushes it off, because at this point in the show he's left on long trips before, but it eventually sinks in that her son is in fact missing. Like any mother should, she was worried and tried to find him desperately, but the only real lead she had was Bakugan, the game he's always playing. She asked Runo if she knew where he went, but Runo just cries and runs away. She then later gets a call from Runo, promising her that she'll find her son, and Miyoko's able to find out where Runo is, just based off of the background of the little video call. After the Brawlers complete their tests and they're all able to go home, Dan is finally reunited with his mother, and we also get the reveal that she had a feeling Bakugan was more than just a game the entire time, because she often saw him talking to his Bakugan. This is all really good stuff, but the last thing that put her this far up on the list is the fact that after these episodes were finished, she actually had something to do with the plot afterwards. She has a hand in helping Joe contact all of the other kids around the world who are playing Bakugan to try to help them stand up against Naga. And overall, I think it's just another example about how well the female characters were treated in the original season. At number 4, we have Dan the man himself. There's so much to say about this character that it almost feels like I don't need to say anything at all. Dan Kuso is so iconic to the Bakugan brand that when they made the reboot, they brought him over to the reboot. But we're obviously not talking about that today. Dan went through so much character development in the first season alone, it's kinda insane. He started off as this bratty kid that wanted to show off how cool his Bakugan was, because it could talk, unlike everyone else. And then he evolves into a genuine hero at the end of the day. And he also learns what it means to be a leader on a team, and he has to face the consequences of the mistakes that he makes, while also showing compassion to those who were once his enemy, like Masquerade, for example. If he defeated Masquerade in the second episode, and found out he was Alice, I'm positive he would have handled that situation completely different. There was a reason Alice was scared to tell him at first. And obviously there's more I could say, but come on guys, it's Dan Kuso. If you're here, I'm pretty sure you must like him in some regard. Yeah, he's not at number 1, but it's just I love these other characters that much more. We're now at the top 3, and I honestly think these next characters could honestly go in any order depending on the person you asked. But for number 3, we have Alice. Alice probably has the most unique character arc in the entire show. There are some characters who have quite a few similarities to her, but what separates Alice from, Mira is how the show handles her guilt. The guilt of her grandfather being Hal G and pretty much being responsible for everything. The guilt of her being Masquerade, who was essentially the main villain of the first half of the entire first season. And also how it addressed and handled her guilt. Because at the end of the day, we all know this isn't Alice's fault. She didn't ask for any of this. She's probably the nicest person you'll ever meet, but the fact that she has this dark side to her just made her a whole lot more interesting. And when she finally got over all of her issues, she was able to stand as a proud member of the team, and the 2 battles she had were some of the best in the entire season. Though battles aren't everything, that is probably the one thing that is stopping her from being number 1, is if we could get to see more of her brawler side. But when they finally went into this part of her character, the show was practically over. So I guess that is just one nitpick. Taking the number 2 spot is my girl Runo. Runo is the only female character that never felt like she was anything but Dan's equal, in the first season at least. All of the other female leads always look up to Dan for guidance because they're amateurs at the game compared to him. He has a lot more experience compared to Mira, Fabia, and I think her name was Paige. But Runo just had this certain level of independence to her in the original season, and it just really made her stand out compared to the other female leads. And like Dan, she had many character flaws, and the show took its time to address those flaws so she could grow as a person. It doesn't really affect the list, but if you see how she is treated in Battle Brawlers and then go to New Vestroya, it's night and day, because New Vestroya just threw that out the window. Before we move on, I just want to say that I don't think New Vestroya and Gundalian Invaders have bad female characters. There's one character in particular that I'm really anxious to talk about, but I'll burn that bridge when we get to it. Before we get to number 1, I do want to do an honorable mention for Masquerade. Masquerade was the first villain of the entire series, and I gotta say, they really knocked it out of the park with this guy. He was intimidating when he needed to be scary, but he had a sarcastic sense of humor, so he wasn't boring the entire time. He felt like a force of nature, but he wasn't ridiculously overpowered. It is possible to beat him. And it doesn't really matter who's your favorite villain. You have to admit, Masquerade definitely laid the groundwork for all of them. Without Masquerade, there was no Spectra Phantom, there's no Wise Man, and his final battle with Dan is absolutely amazing, with him finally having fun, instead of just thinking about the win the entire time. I also love that his last battle in the entire franchise is him teaming up with his old enemy. And the icing on the cake of that entire thing is him finally accepting Alice, considering we got to see how he really thinks about her when he went to the Doom Dimension for his test. Masquerade is a fantastic character. Yes, it would have been great to see him more, but I'm glad he stayed in his lane. At number 1, we have my boy, Shun. If you watch the show, then you have to know he's just the GOAT. Watching him try to open up to people again after his mother passed away was really great to watch because, similar to Alice, he had to learn that he doesn't have to go through all this alone. And sometimes, even if it's the smallest thing, you can tell he's opening up to the team a lot more as the show goes on. And also the fact that his partner, Skyrus, was essentially a final gift from his mother, depending on the version you're watching, the dub or the sub. It also made their partnership a lot more personal than pretty much any other in the entire series. And with that, we are finally done with this list. Thank you all for your patience. My job has been keeping me very busy, and I will try to get started on the next video as soon as possible. But if you guys would like an update on that, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I really want to know your feedback, and give me your list. I'm very interested in that. I'm not sure if you guys saw the update video I had posted. I am working on a video about if Alice had taken over Ace's spot in New Vestroya. It's going to be a bit of a different video, kind of experimental, but feel free to let me know if you would like to see, well, any of the other characters on this list, or any of the characters in the series in general, if you want to see a 5-fact video, because I do want to get some more practice with those. And I also have a video in the works for the original Bakugan video game, but I want to get my hands on it to play it for a bit longer to kind of refresh my memory. In the meantime, I can't really thank you guys enough. I'm so happy that you guys are enjoying the content. In the meantime, well, I'll see you guys later.